which was the what was it? The prequels versus the.
Oh yes, yes. We'll do a quickly jump onto that as well. Yeah, there was another story on Game Informer about prequels versus classics, and I think the main discussion point on that was they were talking about why they picked the classics. Sorry, why they picked the prequels over the classics, which makes complete sense to me. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that one.
Yeah, basically, and obviously, there's been a big dwell on our Facebook page, and I'm sure in a lot of pages, as to why it was that Clone Wars was chosen, or the prequel era was chosen for the starter pack, and it just makes more sense because obviously the key demographic is younger kids. In Star Wars, what's more relevant to the younger kids are the prequels, not to mention even more newer than the prequels are Clone Wars, because that animated series came out after the trilogy came out. So it just makes more sense to actually start with what's more familiar with them, because they are about the key demographic, which are kids, and I think it's the right choice myself. I'm not as harsh as a lot of people are with the trilogy. I mean, I know a lot of people weren't as happy with them as the original trilogy, which I can totally see. But as far as you're a business and you're making a choice as to which direction to go, it's children,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
Go ahead.
This is what it says on the actual. It said their core audience for Disney Infinity are children between 6 and 12. Who know the original or who know the Clone Wars more than the original trilogy, and the game is focused on children under 15, and they are offering the classic trilogy to their parents. Now, that to me is exactly what they're saying is we as adults are looking at the new prequels and going, oh, they're not very good. They're not as good as they were in my day. We're doing our old folk kind of thing of going, oh, they're not as good. Well, to kids of now, they're growing up with, they grew up with the prequels being there. We didn't, and also Clone Wars has been on for 6 years on TV every week. They can watch episodes, hour for hour. There's probably more classic or there's more prequel and Clone Wars stuff than there is originals, and the kids have grown up on that. And, there's been a very strong push from Disney to push the classic trilogy to the kids now, of showing Darth Vader, and you can see that in Rebels and stuff. They're almost like trying to introduce them as the main characters, because I could imagine kids looking at the 70s movie going, this looks a bit naff. They're going to, because you're predisposed as generally to not like anything that's old when you're a kid.
Yeah, and that's true. And no, it's great that Star Wars isn't Star Wars without the original trilogy, and it's great that they actually did include it. And besides the key demographic being 6 to 12, they know that there's tons of people who are older that play this game, and especially they want this to be a family game. It's kind of like Disneyland, they wanted it to be a family park where both parents and kids can enjoy the rides together, as opposed to just the kids and the parents sitting outside. It's the same thing. It's supposed to be a family game where everybody plays. And I think including, the new stuff for the kids and the old stuff for the seasoned kids, it's just a great move. And like you said, the introduction of you want to, regardless of the fact, you have to have your current youth be familiar with these older characters, because we're getting into the future of those older characters now. So
yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's I don't know whether or not it's the same thing as well, of like, the older generation that are into the classic stuff are more generally a little bit more vocal about the fact that they don't, they didn't like the prequels, or they don't like, but there's how many people within the community of Infinity are saying, well, they're going back and watching and they're watching Clone Wars to try and get to kind of study up on all the new series and stuff. I know there's quite a few of us that were going back and go, I know I went back and watched Rebels, and now I'm starting to go through and start to do some of the Clone Wars episodes. because we're looking at it going, well, maybe we did actually miss out on something because we kind of went, nah, it's not for us. And I do think there's a big chunk of the hardcore Infinity audience that are kind of looking at it going, well, maybe I need to do a little bit of research here at this point. I mean, I know last year I went and watched I watched the whole season of Ultimate Spider-Man just to kind of get more familiar with people like Nova, etc.